Yeah, so this election question comes to us from story viewer C. Elliott. He emailed, with all of the stories about 10 hours to wait to vote in other states, fake ballot drop boxes or limited ballot drop boxes, what is being done to solve our voting issues? Does any group, organization, department, etc. oversee voting, and what's being done ahead of the general election? It is a great question, and to get your answer, we checked with several sources. Voter issues are overseen by the Oregon Secretary of State Elections Division. Anyone experiencing voting issues can contact their local county elections office or email their questions or concerns to elections.sos@oregon.gov. Also, Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum says the state has launched a new voter protection hotline. Anyone who has non-emergency issues or concerns about their ballot can call 971-673-4111. Lastly, nationwide, voters can contact Election Protection, a nonpartisan coalition that works to ensure that all voters have the equal opportunity to vote and have that vote count. Kate Titus said you can call the Election Protection Hotline at 1-866-RVOTE with any voting or election-related issues.
What I think voters can feel really secure about right now is that we are leaning in, and there is a robust operation, nonpartisan, massive across the country, here in Oregon as well, that's working to ensure the security and accuracy of this election and to make sure that it comes off free and fair as it should in every election.
Okay, do you have a question about your ballot, about the election, anything having to do with voting? Let us know. Just use the hashtag HeyDan.